This is Gary Newbon, the sporting ambassador for Eventmasters, inviting you to join me for another racing interview. The subject this time is Ian Williams, the successful Midlands trainer who saddled a winner at every single UK racecourse. He's got a wonderful setup at the Dominion Racing Stables just outside Birmingham, where he's got the state-of-the-art complex. Ian, you've got excellent facilities with the Dominion Racing Stables. Where exactly are you?
We're based just off the M42 on the outskirts of Birmingham, Junction 3, which is actually the Redditch Junction, Junction 3 of the M42. We're 1 mile away from that junction.
Now, you've got a state-of-the-art complex. Can you take us through it verbally about what it's like?
Yeah, we're very lucky to have some quite extensive all-weather gallops. We've got an equine pool, a very nice indoor schooling arena and indoor school, and about 113 stables, or we have 113 stables. Lots of turnout and lots of grass areas to be able to get the horses out during the summer for their generally well-required rest.
We'll go over your career in a moment, but it's down to the local businessman Patrick Kelly that you're there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I started training in Oxfordshire quite a long time ago now, 20 plus years, and the first 6 months weren't going particularly well at all. And it was actually Brendan Powell, who retired recently, told me to have a word with Pat Kelly. He said, this guy's up in Birmingham and he wants to build a yard. And when I first came here, Pat had built 30 stables and there was a horse walker and already an all-weather gallop. And between us, we've developed the facility over the last 20 years, and we've now got in excess of 100 stables, accommodation for 40 staff, lots of all-weather gallops, lots of good stuff going on.
Now, obviously, you've got to have good horses, but does that complex give you that little bit extra if you've got a decent horse?
It helps enormously. I mean, facilities are important. The ability to swim a horse that's maybe got a small injury or is suffering from sore shins, or you're preparing for a decent race and gets a stone bruise or a twisted ankle 10 days before, it can be the difference between getting that horse to the races fit and being unable to. So facilities like we have are, whilst they're not a necessity, they're very, very nice to have and make a big difference on the occasions that you need them.
Is it unusual to have a trainer with so many on the flat and so many jumping, which you do? You're a dual trainer.
Yeah, I think we were primarily National Hunt, and we had a moderate National Hunt season one year and had the opportunity to train some flat horses, and the flat horses did well. The string increased, and we'd probably nowadays have a little over 50, probably 60-40 flat against the jumping. We were very fortunate there. The season before last, we actually managed £1 million in prize money, which was a huge effort from the string that we had. We didn't have many, what I'd refer to as group performers, but we won some big handicaps, did some great things, and that's as good a season as we've had, having those winners on the flat. And the National Hunt runs alongside it, and to be honest, it's the National Hunt that I'm very passionate about, but the flat is a real good business, and it helps pay the wages and keep the whole place up and running.
When will you be running again? We're going to have racing, it seems, behind closed doors. How has this affected you?
It's not been as bad as it could have been. The National Hunt horses, as soon as racing was stopped, soon afterwards the BHA made an announcement that National Hunt horses wouldn't be racing until the 1st of July, which was great because it was clear cut for everybody. It meant we could turn the National Hunt horses out to grass, give them their summer holiday, probably 5-6 weeks earlier than we would have done normally, and we had a lot of horses that were primed and ready to run at that stage, but having turned all of those out, it left us with about 50 horses that we have in training currently to run on the flat from when we hope racing kicks off on the 1st of June. What that's enabled us to do is keep a number of staff who live on site, and the staff that don't live on site, they actually haven't been into the yard since shutdown. So we've managed to keep ourselves quite a tight and secure unit.
And I was just thinking about racing behind closed doors. I don't think it will be as bad as looking at football behind closed doors, do you?
I suppose it all depends on the football and the racing.
Yeah.
No, I think
I meant as a
worst part
spectacle, really.
about
Yeah.
well, racing is the spectacle becomes in the last furlong, really, when the people who would be at the races really enjoy the thrill of the race. But we've been watching TV pictures for many years in the betting shops on the racing TV, and I think people will just enjoy seeing the racing back, seeing the horses back, and the crowd participation isn't as much as you would have in a football match or a rugby match or a cricket match. The only sad thing is that when things do start back, if the people who own the horses, and some of those people have bred them, their whole passion for the sport is about going to see them perform and seeing them before the race and how they are after the race. That will make a difference, but hopefully it shouldn't be too long before owners are allowed to go and watch their horses running in small numbers, and the sport can get back to doing what it does best and providing entertainment for a lot of people.
And actually, television coverage is very extensive in the meanwhile, isn't it? At least they'll be able to see them run on the screen.
Yes, racing's very lucky. It's got 2 designated racing channels, and ITV3 do a magnificent job of showing the racing, and I think they'll probably have far more coverage in the first 3 weeks, month, during the summer anyway, of the racing, and it'll be a great shop window opportunity for racing to put itself back in everybody's front room, and hopefully people will enjoy it.
Just so people don't go to the wrong channel, it's actually ITV4, ITV3's Morse and Poirot and all those sort of repeats. So ITV4 and ITV1 will be showing it there. Sorry to correct you, but I didn't want people going to the wrong channel if they want to see the horse.
We wouldn't want people watching the wrong programme, would we?
You've had a winner at every single UK racecourse. I don't think anybody else has done that. Are you aware of anybody else doing that? That is quite incredible.
I'm not aware of anybody who's done that. It was quite a challenge, and being based where we are, it's particularly easy to get to, or easier than some people to get to all parts of the country. But obviously there's flat trainers who've trained a winner on every flat track, and there are a number of national hunt trainers that have trained a winner on every national hunt track. Where we've been fortunate is being dual purpose. We've managed to do that on every track in the country, and I don't know of anybody else who has done it. So it was a nice achievement, and something that we're very proud of as a team.
And you've had over 1,000 winners. Do you know do you know exactly how many winners you've had?
No, I don't. I can remember the day we trained our 1,000th winner, but I can't remember the date of it. And I should think we're probably on about 1,200 and something now. I'm not sure, but we're trekking on towards the second 1,000 anyway.
Yeah, your 1,000 winner was Appy Days at Lingfield on November the 29th.
Appy Days, yeah.
Yeah.
It was for the golfers, for Lee Westwood and Chubby Chandler, and a couple of the other boys. Danny Willett was involved.
Yeah.
It was a good day. Funny day. Very amusing, but a great. I mean, when I look back on my career, I would have been happy to train 100 winners. So to train 1,000 winners and train a winner at every racecourse in the country is, they're real highlights of my career so far.
You're obviously good at counting because you did train for a year to be an accountant. Actually, as you know, I knew your parents in the late 60s when I was starting my TV career in the West Country with Billy and Bridget Williams. You did it for a year, and then what happened? You decided not to go into racing. What happened after a year of studying accountancy?
Well, I studied accountancy, and then I actually joined William Hill as a trainee stroke betting shop manager.
Yeah.
And after about 6 months of managing betting shops, and my area manager at the time always used to say, "Why aren't you out with the horses, Ian? You're wasted here." Um, I applied for a job with Mrs. Pittman to be an assistant, and was fortunate enough to get the job, and started the apprenticeship of being a trainer at that stage. Really, I had spent a good bit of time with my father at home and learnt plenty, but having sort of arrived in Lambourne and thinking I knew quite a lot, I appreciated quite quickly I knew very little, and we never stopped learning. But you can learn masses in a short time if you have a good tutor.
Actually, Jenny had some great horses. I'm thinking, checking here: Royal Athlete, Garrison Savannah, Toby Tobias, just to name three. She was a great era.
No, she was fantastic, a fantastic trainer, and I think one of the years I was there, we actually managed to accumulate 97 winners in one season. But Mrs. P wouldn't go for the 100 because the ground had dried up, and she was not prepared to risk any of her horses in the the chase for the 100, which disappointed us as members of staff. But we totally respected her decision, obviously, and it was a shame not to have got 100 because she deserved it amongst the many other things that she achieved in her career.
Well, you were assistant trainer there. You certainly learnt your trade, because then you had 6 months with Martin Pipe.
Yeah, that was a totally different experience and a totally different job. Martin and his wife Carol were exceptional at the job they did, and they really knew how to train winners and how to get the best out of horses. The levels of fitness of those horses and the knowledge of the program, but within that yard was incredible. And again, although only staying a short time, it was quite incredible to see the levels of fitness and the levels of work behind the scenes that went into ensuring those horses were fit and well on the day.
And then you went to France with Francois Dumont and a wonderful horse called The Fellow that won the King George twice and the Cheltenham Gold Cup.
Yeah, did he not win the King George 3 times, possibly?
I thought it was twice, but I'm happy to stand corrected. But
by
the way, I got the
I think
twice.
It was twice, but he certainly could have won 3 Gold Cups. Only beaten very narrow margins in 2, and thankfully he managed to win 1 because he deserved the plaudits of winning 3 and the 2 King Georges that we referred to. He was an exceptional horse, but although he handled the UK better than a horse that Francois never brought to England, Uccello too was probably a superior athlete, but just never got the chance to come here. He probably wouldn't have coped with the fences as well as the Fellow did. But back home, while the Fellow was doing all he did here, he was achieving great things in France, and along with another horse, Ubu, that Francois trained at the same time. They were widely known as the Three Musketeers, and back 25 years ago, they each won over £1 million in prize money, which takes some doing now for a national hunt horse.
Yeah. By the way, I got the 2 King George winners off your website, so I presume it's accurate.
I was just checking up. It's been a long 8 weeks while we haven't done any racing, Gary.
Yeah, fair enough. One of the great highlights must be on the 15th of March 2016. Not only is that my birthday, the 15th of March, but it's your festival winner with Bali Alton. Was your first festival winner, and deservedly so, because it'd been second in 2014 to Follin, actually. Follin. So that was a worthy winner, wasn't it?
He was a worthy winner, and he was a great horse. We were quite fortuitous with him, actually, because he fell in one of the graded races at Ascot in the race before, when going quite well. And should he have even completed that day, I'm sure his handicap mark, if he hadn't have won, would have gone up £10, so he wouldn't have qualified for the Cheltenham race. But we were a little anxious because he'd made some novice mistakes in his previous races, obviously taken a heavy fall with Ascot the time before. And we were undecided up until the final week as to whether or not we'd run in the novice chase or go in one of the handicap hurdles. And he was owned by Lee Westwood's father, John. And fortunately, between us, we came to the right decision. And Brian Hughes rode him for us, and he did the job nicely. But it was a huge relief as a trainer, particularly in my position. I'd worked for trainers who've had numerous winners at Cheltenham. It was a real relief just to get one on the board, and I hope there'll be more to follow in the rest of my career.
Your late father, Billy, actually would have been really proud because he got third in the Sun Alliances one year, which was fantastic for him being a small Devon trainer. He'd have loved that, wouldn't he?
Oh, he would have done. I mean, he was very proud of what was going on, but fortunately, he passed away before we had some of our bigger moments. We did win the French King George, the jumping equivalent, with a horse called Batman Sonora, which he was alive and got to see that, and he was very happy and very proud, as I was, to go back to France and win one of their major races, probably the second most important steeplechase on their card. He was about for that, but he would have enjoyed every success, and he'd probably have helped me through one or two of the failures as well. It's always good to have a chat with somebody when things aren't quite going like they should be.
And it happens in all walks of life. You've got a great relationship with Eventmasters, and they've had 3 horses with you so far. They've just acquired a 4th, and they've had winners with you each time. So that's good, and they're well pleased with that. Just talk about, before we go back to the previous horses, just talk about the new one, Party Business.
It's named. I mean, Mark and Denise have come up with a great name for him. That helps immediately. He's a 4-year-old by Chantou. His mother was a useful performer. We did quite a bit with him at the beginning of the spring, but obviously would like to have run him round about sort of May time in a National Hunt flat race. That wasn't going to happen this season with everything. So he's out in the field. He's a bit of an escape artist. He's a bit of a character, and he's actually managed to get away out of his paddock on 2 occasions during the last 3 or 4 weeks. But he's a really good sort, but a great attitude. And to be fair, was showing us plenty at home before we were obliged to let him off for the season and give him a break. But he'll be back in July time, and we'll get him ready for a bumper in the spring and hopefully crack on with him hurdling. But size and scope to go chasing, so he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Good. Well, Mark and Denise Sheesby, as I say, had 3 horses with you. Let's talk about the first one, 1998, a hurdler and a chaser, Latchford, named after a great player for Birmingham who went on to play for Everton, Bob Latchford. Bob actually came up when he was the Birmingham City youth team coach for a publicity shot at your stables, I think.
He did. That was a long time ago now, and Latchford was was the first horse that we were involved with Mark. He won at Uttoxeter one day. He was going well enough to have won in a race 3 weeks earlier, and he fell at the second last, and we were all a little disappointed. But we knew that if he was going that well on that day, if we found the same race for him in similar conditions, then he was probably quite a good thing. And there was a race, I think it was 3 weeks later, back at Uttoxeter, and he duly did the business in no uncertain terms. And the boys all like to have a little interest when things are looking good. So it was great. It was a great day, and it resulted in a flight to Perth, I think, for one of his later runs, which was rather hectic, rather long, and enduring, I would say. But he won up there, and we had some great times with the horse. He was a little fragile and probably didn't achieve everything he'd have been capable of, but he was well named, well bought, and we had some good sport with him.
And he was owned by actually a consortium with Mark and Denise, who are still Eventmasters clients, which is nice. If we move on to a filly called Urangaela, who got off a claimer at Litchfield, I think. Yeah. Sorry, Lingfield claimer.
We'd had a Sunday lunch with Mark and a few other clients, and Mark had been following this horse and was determined that she had some potential. and she was running at Lingfield in a claiming race, and we both said we'll keep an eye on her. It wasn't a particularly good race and a race that she should win. So we were keeping an eye on her. Unfortunately, I was stuck on a roof for some reason or another, and I couldn't get reception on my phone, and all I heard was that she'd won by 20 lengths. Mark, we sort of discussed it, said, right, she's won that well, we'll claim her, or put a claim in for her, and we were fortunate enough to get her. When we saw the result that the second favourite had actually got stuck in the stalls and hadn't raced at all, so in effect she'd won a 3 or 4 runner race where she was the only horse in the race that could win. We were a little anxious, but we got her home, and her soundness issues that she supposedly had didn't cause us any problems, and we took her back for her first run to Chester, where I believe she duly bolted up.
Yeah, she did.
And we had some great days with her, and I think Mark might have put her in foal now. She's quite a nicely bred Chilean mare, won plenty of races, and certainly a breeding prospect. So we'll look forward to see what she produces in the years to come.
For those watching who just sort of fairly new to racing, can you explain what a claimer is, Ian?
Yeah, a claimer is a race where, as a trainer or an owner, you put a value on a horse and you decide that you can put them in a claiming race, which means that all the horses that are in that race can be claimed. So you can purchase a horse out of the race for the stated value that the owner and trainer have put, and that horse is actually weighted against the value of the horse. So, for example, if you have a claiming race, a horse that's in for a value of £15,000 would probably carry more weight than a horse that is in for £8,000. So their official ratings don't come into it. It's about how much weight as an owner or a trainer you want your horse to carry. It's a trading race, and you put horses in claiming races, sometimes hoping to sell them, sometimes just hoping to find an easier opportunity for them, and hoping that somebody doesn't purchase them. But if you run horses in claimers as a trainer, you have to expect them to be bought if they perform above what was expected, or somebody feels they can do a better job with them. They are trading races.
Right, and the last of those 3 that have run so far, Gamble. Now, I remember him winning at Stratford. He did win a few races, didn't he, Gamble?
Yeah, he won a few races, never when we expected him to win. He was a very talented horse, but had his issues which we thought we could overcome, and we did on occasion, but never when we thought we were going to overcome them. One day he was running at Towcester, and Mark and Denise were in a meeting, and they were very late getting away, and they're literally arriving at the races just as the race is about to start. But Gamble was a little bit keen and free-willed, so he'd actually taken off at the start, got to the start, but continued past the starter, over the fence at the back, and was galloping loose in the field behind. Although the field was I think it was about a 400-acre estate field, and it took a long time to catch him. So although the race was held up, he was in no fit state to take part in that race, and the whole trip was a waste of time. And Mark and Denise, being how they are, were very relaxed. We had a couple of beers and had a chat, had a bit of a giggle about the whole situation, and enjoyed our day all the same. Maybe not quite what it would have been if Gamble had won on that occasion, but at least he didn't get beaten.
Actually, you 3 get on very well, because I've often had a drink with you at places like Cheltenham and Warwick, and you always pop in to say hello to them.
Well, Mark and Denise are extremely hospitable. As you pointed out earlier, they've got clients that go back from well over 20 years ago. Yeah. And it's a little bit of a family. So whenever you go and see Mark and Denise, you will always meet and see people that you've known for years. And you might only see them on a one-off basis at Cheltenham or Chester, but they're always in good company, always in good spirits, and we always have a good laugh, win, lose or draw.
Finally, Ian, if somebody's watching this and they quite fancy putting a consortium together, or even owning a horse themselves or with friends, what should they do? Would you show them around your Dominion
Oh, listen,
setup?
friends of Eventmasters are friends of mine. They can either contact Mark or Denise and just say, look, we'd like to go and have a pop round and look round Ian's, or they can always come directly to us. All of our contact details are on our website, ianwilliamsracing.com, and you can have a look around there, see what we do, and you're more than welcome. You know, it's a big family. We all stick together and we all look after one another. So anybody that's a friend of Eventmasters is a friend of Ian Williams Racing.
If only I could afford one.
You could afford two, Gary.
Ian, thanks ever so much for talking to us. It's been a pleasure for me, and I hope it has for you.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, and good luck. And let's look forward to Cheltenham, Chester next year when we can all go and have a good day out.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. We're all missing it.